Robert Taylor is the founder of the Antique Airplane Association, which is located in Blakesburg, Iowa. If you get the chance to go there, you will better appreciate the park in the word air park. The Blakesburg Airfield is a wonderful example of what so many of us love about grass airstrips. The ambience is truly reminiscent of the early age of aviation it is meant to represent. I thought it'd be nice to learn a little bit about the man who brought this all into fruition. Here's Robert Taylor.
We have here a donation to the library, this ladder up here to check on all the books high up. This is one of many things that have been donated to make this library possible. This project was started about 7 years ago. This was an abandoned farmhouse that was remodeled and put together. This ladder represents the spirit and the enthusiasm for the library here, and was donated by one of our members and was rebuilt and restored and finally developed so it could be used here. It was impossible to reach the other shelves unless we had a step ladder, and this is a piece of equipment that's seen often in libraries. But it's kind of a symbol of the spirit that we had here in building this library, that people kept trying to help us in many ways to make it a functioning library. And when I come in and see this ladder, it reminds me that we couldn't have done this without the help of a lot of AA members and their families. We have approximately 5,000 titles so far in this library and thousands of periodicals in the basement, and with more coming in almost daily. The shelves are being added to on a regular basis, and we have volunteers that run this place during the fly-in, and we have probably 1,000 people visit this facility during our annual AAPM fly-in. On top here are mainly the highly researched things like Jane's All the World's Aircraft yearbooks that were put out for many years in the United States. And these books are all in categories by little metal plates that indicates where on the computer they can be found. This is a two-cylinder engine that Glenn Curtis designed. As far as we know, we're still researching it, and was built for motorcycle use. And Glenn Curtis set a world speed record on a motorcycle, I believe in 1902, of 128 miles an hour, something to that effect. I don't have the exact figures here. And this was reported when it was donated to have been used in a small airship as the motive power, and probably the oldest piece of mechanical aviation history that we have here in the Air Power Museum. The library was built entirely through donated funds, and primarily through individuals that have also donated a lot of books. A lot of these books have come from the estates of what we call Gone West members, who their family donate the books, and a lot of times other money to help us build this. It's about 4,000 square feet, and we really already feel like we may have to expand it from all the material that's coming in yet, promised, and will be coming in. J.G. Jack Lowe of Denver, Colorado, was painted by one of our really early members, Melba Beard, who's long gone west. And Jack here was the founder, actually one of the founders of the Air Power Museum in 1964. And unfortunately, Jack died at age 45, and but we like to keep him in mind. This thing says, dedicated to the memory of the founder and first president of the Air Power Museum, and gratitude for his bequest of both funds and his personal library that made this library possible. Here we have a rare artifact. It's a cylinder off of a Wright J5 engine, and some of us will always remember that Lindbergh made his famous flight behind a Wright Whirlwind J5 engine, and so did many other early ocean crossings by various people, Chamberlain and so on. And the engine was 220 horsepower, and for a while it was the standard amongst many airplanes being built in the 27, 28, and 29. It was supplanted by the Wright J6, J7, and J69 engines that were more horsepower, and they then became the standard. But a lot of the early airplanes had this engine, and we don't have a complete J5 in the museum, but we're very proud to have this cylinder here. These plaques here on the wall from both our members and corporations and the AAA chapters represent the people that believed in this project, and through a period of 6 years made it all possible with their donations of funds. The seed money came from the Roy Carver Foundation in Muscatine, Iowa, and that allowed us to get the movement going to build the whole thing. We estimate that, we don't estimate, we have the bills and everything, that the library has cost us $213,000 just in actual cash, and many, many hours of volunteer labor. For instance, while these floors were built by a contractor, all the finishing of the shelves and everything were done by volunteers under the direction of Brent Taylor, and that saved us a considerable amount of money in that regards. It's a very important thing to us that the people that did make it possible are honored in any way we can, and because many of them have passed on. I'd like to invite you to see something that you probably have never seen in any museum or any airport before, about a forgotten part of World War II known as the 6th Air Force. This room is dedicated to what we call the Forgotten Air Force, the 6th Air Force of World War II. Actually, the people involved in this organization was started in the 20s, when the 25th Bomb Squadron and the 24th Fighter Squadron were sent to the Panama Canal Zone to protect the Panama Canal. And some of those organizations were still there in World War II. We were one of the smallest air forces. It always had the oldest airplanes, and it included Chile to the south, the Virgin Islands to the east, and Galapagos Islands to the west. And was there primarily to protect the Panama Canal from attack by the Germans. In World War II, Germany, their sub sank over 400 ships in the Caribbean. Fortunately, the Japanese never got to the west side of the canal, so there was no Japanese submarines involved. And up here, we have a picture of the Japanese design for airplanes carried on submarines, giant submarines, particularly to bomb the Panama Canal. They set sail in August of 1945. Nobody really knew their destination, but when the atomic bomb was dropped, these subs were scuttled, and the only one airplane survived that was left on land, and it's now in the National Air and Space Museum, been restored completely. Here we have Dan Hagedorn, who's now curator of the Museum of Flight in Seattle, who's written more history about the 6th Air Force than probably anybody alive. Charles Lindbergh went down there with the Spirit of St. Louis in 1928, and there was only one fighter squadron there, the 24th, at the time, and he borrowed a Boeing PW-9, which is pictured up here, and used that to tour Panama and Costa Rica. And I was always curious who the crew chief was, because I bet he was sweating blood, wondering if that airplane would stay together while Lindbergh was flying it. But the missions were all successful. Some of the conditions that we faced down there was the heavy rains, and this is a picture taken right after France Field had an 18-inch rain, paddling around in one of the life rafts. And at that time we had P-39s that are sitting over there on the ramp. But basically the mission of the 6th Air Force was to protect the Panama Canal, because thousands of tons of war material moved through there daily to the Pacific front. And if the Japanese had been able to put that out of commission, the war would have lasted a lot longer. And the 6th Air Force and the U.S. Navy and some of the Royal Navy managed to sink 18 German submarines that we were aware of.